In this video, we're going to look at finding intercepts of functions. And in each example, we'll look at a different type of function. In example 1, we have f of x is equal to 3x plus 4, which is a linear function. And in order to find the x-intercept, we're going to set y equal to 0. In order to find the y-intercept, we're going to set x equal to 0. So if we plug 0 in for x, we'd have 3 times 0 plus 4. 3 times 0 is 0, so this is equal to 4. So we know that the y-intercept of this function is 0, 4. And then if we want to find the x-intercept, we're going to make y equal to 0. So we have 0 is equal to 3x plus 4. Subtract 4 from both sides. So negative 4 is equal to 3x. And then divide by 3. So x is equal to negative 4/3. So that means our x-intercept is negative 4/3, 0. In the next example, we have a quadratic function. So I usually start with finding the y-intercept because I feel like it's easier to find it. So we're going to plug 0 in for x, and we would have 0 squared plus 0 minus 6, which is negative 6. So our y-intercept is 0, negative 6. And now our x-intercept is going to be 0 is equal to x squared plus x minus 6. And remember, to solve a quadratic, we either need to factor it or we need to use the quadratic formula. In this case, I'm going to factor it and say that we can write x squared plus x minus 6 as x plus 3 and x minus 2. So that means that we have two x-intercepts. One is negative 3, 0, because if we set x plus 3 equal to 0, x equaling negative 3 would be the solution. And if we set x minus 2 equal to 0, then the solution is 2. So we also have an x-intercept at 2, 0. In the next example, we have a square root function. And to find the y-intercept first, again, we have x equaling 0. And when we have 0 plus 2, that's 2 inside the radical. So the y-intercept is 0 square root of 2. And now to find the x-intercept, we're going to say that 0 is equal to the square root of x plus 2. Now we square both sides, so 0 squared is still 0, is equal to x plus 2. And now subtract 2 from both sides, so x is equal to negative 2. So we have an x-intercept at negative 2, 0. And in this example, you can see that inside the radical now is x minus 2 instead of x plus 2, and then we've shifted it up 1 unit. So when we plug x in, we have a negative number inside the radical, which we know that inside the radical has to be greater than or equal to 0. So there is no y-intercept. And now if we set this function equal to 0, we have 0 is equal to the square root of x minus 2 plus 1. And if we subtract 1 from both sides, we have negative 1 is equal to the square root of x minus 2. And we know when we input something into a radical, it cannot come out a negative number. So there's no x-intercept either. And that's why I wanted to put this example on here. You don't always have an x and a y-intercept, and then in this case we didn't have an x or a y-intercept. In this example, if we make x equal to 0, we would have negative 2 divided by negative 5, so the y-intercept is 0. And when we have negative 2 divided by negative 5, it comes out to 2/5. And now, when we set the whole function equal to 0 to find the x-intercept, I wrote it out, but if we were to cross multiply, 0 times 4x minus 5 would be 0. So the only thing we really need to do is set the numerator equal to 0, and then at the end just make sure that that solution doesn't also make our denominator equal to 0. Remember, if your numerator and your denominator equals 0 at the same place, you have a hole, and then we wouldn't have an intercept because it wouldn't cross there. So here I'm going to say 0 is equal to 3x minus 2. Add 2 to both sides. So x is equal to 2/3. And now I'm going to double check the denominator and make sure this doesn't make it 0. So 4 times 2/3 is 8/3. 8/3 minus 5 is not equal to 0. So our x-intercept is 2/3 0. And in the last example, we have another rational function. And now we have x squared plus 7 divided by x squared minus 25. And to find the y-intercept, again, we're just going to make x is equal to 0. So we have 7 over negative 25. So our y-intercept is 0 and negative 7 over 25. And then for the x-intercept, I'm going to set x squared plus 7 equal to 0. And I'm going to subtract 7 from both sides, and we can see that x squared is equal to negative 7. And we know if we ever square a number, it cannot come out negative. So here we have no x-intercept. And that's all for this video on x and y intercepts.